I had a hobby too. Mine happened to be guns and ballistics, and I studied guns and ballistics as much as I could, and I wrote an article about high velocity.
So out of all my years working at Weatherby, the last 5 have been some of the most exciting. Working with Adam, with him running the company.
And to think that I get the opportunity of carrying on my grandfather's legacy 75 years later here in Sheridan, Wyoming, I mean, it really is a dream come true.
Oh, I'm home. Thank God I'm home.
On Our Mark, the Weatherby Podcast.
Welcome back to On Our Mark, the Weatherby Podcast, and we've got with us today a couple guests. Tyler, great shirt, by the way.
Thank you. This is a Bottomlands original.
Go to Mississippi one time.
I went to Mississippi last week, and I came back, and I'm missing it already, I guess.
Yeah, well, you brought a little Mississippi back with you at that shirt. I like it. Seth Hiller, welcome back to the podcast.
Great to be here.
Jared
Howdy.
Jared is wearing a really nice Weatherby polo, and if you want to know what everyone's wearing, Seth has a nice Henley on too. So, for you listeners out there,
Yeah.
Keep it sharp. Got to have buttons.
That's true. I just have a regular old button-down plaid shirt. Today we're talking about the fastest 243, the Weatherby 240. Fun fact, might be the only cartridge in our lineup where Roy Weatherby decided to go the opposite direction with what it is. Well, it's not completely true. Like sometimes he makes up a number, rounds up, but 240, why didn't he go 245? 243. It's a 240 Weatherby. Do you know why, Jared?
I have no idea. I've heard there's you've got like your 460 instead of,
458.
458.
Yeah.
340 instead of a 338.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you just like to switch it up.
Yeah, kept people on their toes. Yeah, I've always wondered that. Nobody knows the answer. The reason is it's because of the way that it is. Yeah. Tyler, tell us a little facts on the 240.
240 entered production in 1968. I think, what was it, the 10th round cartridge? Does anyone actually know that? Fact check me on that one.
Ooh, I can't do that off the top of my head.
I think
I'm
it was
sorry.
Potentially the 10th? I think it was the 10th.
That's probably about the right ballpark.
I can't say that you're wrong.
Yes.
Neither confirm nor deny.
Please send us an email if I am wrong. But I think it was the 10th cartridge. It's a kind of cool, 30-06 neck down to 243 for that case capacity. So,
And belted.
Yeah, with a belt.
yes,
Which is cool.
So a little extra. Jared, what's your take on the 240? You like these things.
Oh, man. So my take would be, everybody who likes a 243, it's just more so. So like all the people out there who are like, oh, like you always say like, hey, it's a great deer round. It's a great coyote round. It's, it's flat shooting. They talk about like, those attributes on a 243, like a 243 Win is like the most common 6mm out there.
Yeah.
It's all of that and more. So that's kind of where a 240 fits. So it basically does everything a 240 does better.
243?
Yeah, 243, except maybe slightly recoil, but that's pretty negligible.
Seth, what we got in our lineup bullet-wise?
Bullet-wise, we have on the lighter end the 72 grain hammer, so monolithic lathe turn copper bullet. Screaming fast. Looking at one of the boxes downstairs, it was 3,700 feet per second muzzle velocity.
That's pretty quick.
That's real fast for production ammo. That's not even that's not someone hand loading. That's right off the shelf.
That's skating right along. At 300 yards, it's still north of 2,700 feet per second, so it gets there in a hurry. We have the 80 grain Barnes TTSX. Also no slouch on speed. It's 34 and change at the muzzle. And the 100 grain Interlock is the third one that we've got in the lineup currently on the select ammo line.
So I was doing a little math this morning, getting ready for this podcast, and I was using the 80 grain Barnes TTSX 3,400 feet per second. I did like some longer math, and Seth's pretty good at math. He was our controller before. I'm gonna throw myself under the bus. So
I was going to let you get a free pass on this, but
I'll show you my screen. Like there's lots of numbers. I went pretty far with the significant digits. I'll tell you what I did. 3,400 feet per second is equal to 40,800 inches per second. That's a lot of inches.
That is a lot of inches.
Yeah. 24-inch barrel. So the bullet at 3,400 feet per second takes 0.005882353 seconds to exit the barrel, which would mean it would take about 1,700 shots for a bullet to be in the barrel for a second. Tracking?
Yeah, I'm following on this one.
So I go over to Seth. I'm like, hey, check my math. And he's like, well, that's a real convoluted way to get there. And what did you do, Seth?
well, I was like, well, let's see. The 3,400 feet per second is in feet. The barrel is 2 feet long. So if you divide 3,400 by 2, you get to 1,700 pretty quickly. So it's redneck math versus the very technical way of doing it.
Yeah, I was like, I feel stupid now, but also I feel good that my math worked.
A little less efficiency there on the long.
Have you ever really thought about that? Like how long? Like we talk about barrel burnout and whatnot, whatever that means, like the throat erosion, but that's happening. Let's say it takes 1,700 rounds to erode your barrel to the point where you're losing accuracy. That means a bullet traveled through that for a second.
Yeah, I think, and depending on cartridge, that'll vary a little bit, but typically you're buying like 3 seconds a barrel. So you're like, that's an expensive 3 seconds, but it works out.
It'd be interesting to like equate it to like how many flaps does a hummingbird do in the same amount of time or something like that.
I'm sure whatever it would be, Seth would be like, well, here's the easy way to do that. Lesser known fact is the hummingbird flaps at, well, I don't even know.
Don't know
Pretty
that
funny.
one either. Yeah.
I think that the 240 is probably one of the most underrated Weatherby cartridges.
Yeah, it's kind of it's just a cool all around round. Like I remember when I was a kid, we used 243, but like looking back, just knowing more about ballistics, it would have been way better to have a 240.
Yeah, the 240 takes a ton of guesswork out. Again, if you take just a regular old standard scope and put it on top of a 240 and zeroed it like 300 yards, you're killing deer out to like 400 yards without having to make any real significant correction at all. I mean, it's like point and shoot.
And even like the energy that it carries, like if you're comparing it to like a 243, you're getting a lot better effective range on the energy. Like usually it's 1,200 foot-pounds and 1,800 feet per second muzzle or velocity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just looking at some of the charts, it's pretty cool how much farther the energy goes. A lot of them will make it on the velocity, but on the energy, being able to push something faster equals killing power. So,
yeah, one way to look at it too is like if you start off, like say 100 grain interlock, if you start off at, 3,300 feet per second or whatever, it's close, 3,275, and a 243 starting off at 2,950 or whatever, you're going to have the same ballistics, but adding like 200 yards. So basically your 243 is going to be chugging along. If you fired a bullet 200 yards in front of it, it's basically the same ballistics after that point. So it's interesting to see, but it's a really fast cartridge.
One of people talk about like killing power. I really think what they mean is velocity. It's like how how fast the bullet's going when it hits something, because that seems to be what really turns the lights off. And I think in all of our experience, but man, I've seen and heard some stories of the 240 just lights out. Seth, you got a little going there, right?
Oh yeah, it's an impressive killing machine, and again, never advocate for taking shots on moving animals. But again, a 240, if something's moving and it's 200 yards away, your flight time on that's less than a quarter of a second to go 200 yards. So, I mean, you're talking a quarter of a step, maybe at a quarter of a second. So you can do some pretty good work there. But yeah, my 12-year-old finally got old enough to go deer hunting this year. So his first whitetail walked out at 325 yards, and I'm like, oh, that's pressing the limit a little bit, but we were running out of days in the season. So kind of got him laid down on the ground, got him comfortable, and deer stopped for a second at 325 yards, and I was like, all right, it's 0 to 300, so just put it like maybe an inch high or so of where you want it to hit. And he pulled the trigger and just carved that deer's heart like right in half with a hammer. It was pretty impressive. Those 72 grain hammers are lights out. I mean, I think it took a half a step and just tipped over, and it was like, boy, I hope you didn't spine him, but got up there, and it was a great shot. And yeah, there you go. That's what a heart on a whitetail looks like.
That there's some kind of a graphic image, but that just kind of looks like red jelly.
Yeah, that's a pretty good
Like
description.
strawberry jam.
Yeah, the heart eaters in the family would have been disappointed. Luckily, there are none of those in my house. So
yeah, no heart tacos on
no
that one.
no tacos out of that one. But no,
My-
it was a great shot. It was a good experience for a first deer. You know, you always kind of get worried when you have a brand new hunter out there. But again, that velocity, that flat of a shooting cartridge, it just takes so much of that guesswork out on, you know, even a novice hunter. So compared to, you know, my first 243, that 240 just beats it hands down. I mean, he's maybe 90 pounds, so like he can handle recoil on that gun. It's not a heavy gun, so it worked well.
Yeah, that actually reminds me that I think we left out of kind of our facts on the 240. That was the cartridge the 6-lug Mark V action was originally built for.
Yeah.
Which now today that the Mark V Camilla is pretty much just a 6-lug. The 6.5 RPM that we launched in 2019 was basically backwards developed around that action. So if the 240 hadn't have come to be, probably the 6.5 and 338 RPM would not have either.
That's an interesting take, yeah.
Yeah. It's a little fun fact too.
For sure, yeah. That would have stifled the development of the sub 5-pound super sweet guns.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of know all the numbers from the last few years, but we almost sell. It's probably 60-40, 9-lug to 6-lug, just since 2019, where we launched the 6.5 RPM. So almost half of our Mark V sales are in the 6-lug action, which wouldn't have happened if 240 didn't exist.
It's interesting too, it being in a Mark V, just to like really optimize that cartridge too, because we offer it in Vanguard.
We used to.
Model 307.
We used to. It's not in the Vanguard anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
so but we do some Model 307s.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
Model 307's got a 240 in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the people who don't know exactly what we're talking about, it's basically the 0.6 length, so it's a long action. But when he added that shoulder in, so he wanted a belt on it, but he basically ran a die over the top of it to create a belt. So if you can make one, but it would be difficult to do. But you can basically take an 0.6 length or 270 or 25-06, run a die over it to make a belt, and then modify it from there. Double shoulder. I mean, you'd have to fire for them. But,
Sure.
yeah, but it's basically, if you look at it side by side with like a 25-06 or any of those cartridges, it lines right up in there. So, yeah, never mind. That's not the smallest because we have the 224.
Yeah.
But,
Again, he went up one.
Yeah, I know.
Actually, isn't the
The
nominal
bullet's actually a
the
224.
bullet is a 224? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the nominal for the 223 Remington, it went down one. I mean, were the calipers off? A little back then.
Yeah.
They weren't calibrated.
Depends. I guess it depends where you're measuring. Yeah.
Yeah. Thing like
Groove, bore, all the fun things.
been recently kind of getting into etymology. I'd be curious on some of the etymology of like how some of the bullet names came to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have seen comments though where it's like, where they're like, well, of course it's faster than the 243. It's 3 points smaller. And it's like, no, that's not how that works at all. Same bullet.
Yeah, it's we've had a number of comments recently that I've thought about addressing. When we were talking about some of the new models, we talk about it's available in these calibers. We know the difference between a caliber and a cartridge. I think we get accustomed at shows when we're talking to people that will be like, oh, you can get it in this caliber. 'Cause people always ask, what caliber is it available in? We know that a 308, a 300 Weatherby, a 300 Win, they're all the same caliber, but different cartridges. So there's been a number of comments on YouTube.
Yeah,
where people are like, do they not know the difference? We do know. It's just, I think we just kind of get used to like a Kleenex, you know, we typically know what we're talking about when we're, hey, what calibers is available?
Yeah.
Well,
We mean chambered in, okay?
Yeah. Just wanted to point that out. I don't know what you said that made me think of that, but I was just trying to think of the bullet etymology. I don't know if that would be technically etymology at that point, like where words come from, like made up words, like ampersand. Like what's the origin of that word?
What does that word mean?
Like ampersand, like the symbol on the 7 key.
Oh,
An
okay.
ampersand.
Are you studying for like a spelling
and a
bee or
sign.
something?
No,
Yeah.
no, like it's just
Advanced degree.
it's interesting.
Can you use that in a sentence?
I'll probably butcher this, but back in the day, it was like a letter, and if a letter was also a word, you would say per se. So like if there was the letter A is also a word, so you would say per se A. And so on and so forth, or I, per se I. Well, it was after Z back in the day, so you would say Z and per se and that got shortened down to ampersand. Prove it wrong.
There's no way I could prove you wrong on that one.
Yeah, I don't think English isn't really my game.
No,
a
it's
math guy.
it's weird language.
It is.
So I just thought that was an interesting story. I don't know why I shared it. So just like that, the origin of ampersand. Why is 223 Remington a 223 and not a 224? Somebody knows.
We're all looking at Jared.
Well, so there's
Jared usually knows these things.
well, because they're right around that time. You had it really was. I mean, because it's the same bolt as a 222, which is what is that? That's the bore diameter, not the groove diameter. And so they have the 222 Magnum, and then I don't know. It's all mixed up in there, but there's so many cartridges that are right around there where it's like one up, one down. You know.
Still curious why we don't have the 245.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The 6mm Express, something cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like there was a lot of like latitude that was still available back then. There wasn't that many named things, so
It's true. We'll never know. Never know. Anyway, it's a great cartridge.
Yes. It was actually my little story about 240 Weatherby. My first Weatherby trip was the antelope trip.
Oh yeah.
And the first animal I seen die on a work trip was Lyle shot an antelope with a 240, and it was 250 yards with a light switch.
Wasn't somebody else actually hunting that antelope and it doubled back or something like that?
Yeah, it was actually funny. Zach from Onyx chased this antelope, and me and Lyle just hung out at the truck. And then this giant antelope, biggest one of the trip, just circles back after they chased him. And Lyle's like, "Are we going to shoot this?" I'm like, "That's a pretty big antelope." So we ended up taking that one pretty quickly.
Could y'all still see Zach?
No.
He was
Zach,
like way off.
They were way down, way out. They chased him, and we're just hanging out. And all of a sudden, I'm like, "There's the antelope that they're chasing."
And there's, what's not there is a Zach.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. And then
That one just died instantly, right?
Yeah, there was a light switch. There was nothing.
Yeah.
Straight I think it was like 250, 270 yards.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Did he
That's
know it
awesome.
was the same one, or did you have to tell him?
I don't know if we knew it was the same one, but we're like, that one's pretty big, and there's no way we should not shoot that antelope.
That's a really good
Yeah.
strategy, though. Like, to the listeners out there, there's some pretty good hunting tips coming out right now. Where you
Yes.
just don't really leave the truck, and you just let all the other pumpkin heads run around out there and chase things back to you. I mean,
Yeah.
At least when you're antelope hunting.
yeah, that works on antelope.
That's usually a good strategy for antelope. Maybe not for elk.
Yeah, that's probably not the best elk strategy.
That one was cool. And then another kind of random 240 story is I was in at Max Prairie Wings in Stuttgart, Arkansas last fall. And we were just in there talking with the gun buyer. We just went in and said hello, introduced ourselves, and we're talking. And when we're done, all of a sudden, a guy comes up to me and goes, "Did you say you're with Weatherby?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're here. We're just down here shooting ducks, doing the whole thing." And he's like, "I have a 240 Weatherby that I've had for 30 years." And he just like went on and on about how many whitetails he'd shot down in Arkansas. I was like, that's pretty fun.
That's awesome.
I'm sure there's a million stories like that, but
You pulled a couple reviews off of the website, right?
I did pull some.
I like
some
this
reviews.
one at the bottom. It says, I've been hunting with my 240 Weatherby since 1970. I've taken over 50 whitetail deer and many antelope. It says they are instant death to about 350 yards. I inserted the word all on accident. And I have a Mark V Deluxe. Thanks, Art.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
That one's cool too. The guy, there's another one that's like, I've always been fascinated with Weatherby cartridges. Looking at the ballistics of the 240 Weatherby, I believe I have found the perfect all-around deer cartridge. And then he went on to say a couple of things about shooting some elk and some bigger bucks.
Yeah, he took an
So,
elk at 210.
Yeah.
I met a guy at a show that's killed multiple moose with a 240.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which in your head, you're like, I'm probably undergunned for a moose. But after seeing what it did to that Seth's son's deer's heart, that's brutal.
Yeah, it's a little laser gun. It's probably the most fun Weatherby gun to shoot, I guess. If I was going to just sit there and stack them up, like,
Yeah.
it just gets there in such a hurry. I mean, those 72 grain hammers, the flight time is so fast on those. Like, just even ringing steel, it's a great time.
Yeah, it gets there before you pull the trigger. I don't know how that works, but it does.
It defies all physics. I mean, it's in the math that you actually ran down earlier. I think there was a negative in there somewhere.
No, it checked out though. Remember?
It did.
Another person who uses 240 Weatherby a lot is our local guy, Sam Davis. That's his guide gun. He's a big archery guy, but he guides in the fall
I didn't
too.
know that.
And his 240 Weatherby, that's his guide gun. He said that thing has killed so many things.
It's because his arms are so small. He probably doesn't want to carry anything heavier.
Can't handle the recoil.
Yeah, Sam's probably also mad that we're talking about him being a rifle hunter and not just a bow hunter. So
He guides.
he guides.
He guides. Sam's probably one of the most legit hunters out there, and his arms are not small. His arms are actually like the size of my legs. Anything else that we miss? Tyler? Jared? Seth?
I would be curious on like getting your guys' opinion. So like the guy who says he hunts elk, what's the cutoff, do you think, for do you just go after foot pounds, or is elk too big in your mind, or what do you think?
I don't think I would hesitate for almost anything. Probably even moose. I think where I would draw the line for me is maybe not necessarily the size of game, but what the game is. I would probably not shoot a 240 personally at a bear because they don't really bleed and they are tough. Now, it might go lights out if you're close enough, but if it runs off with a little hole, you're not likely to see any blood.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, even locally here, dating back, 50, 60, 70 years, you think about the number of people that were out hunting with 243s and how many, elk, moose, deer, whatever, has all, they've all been killed by that cartridge for years and years and years. Is it the best tool for the job? Probably not. Is it possible? Absolutely. A well-placed shot, it's going to kill just about anything, but your margin for error definitely goes down. And as far as Luke was alluding to, I mean, tracking an animal that's wounded with a 6mm hole that can shift its hide, it's going to be a little tougher.
It's going to be harder.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I'm a tool guy, so like I like to have the right tool for like. Yes, maybe you can do it, but again, the right tool. So like for me, I'm like, man, I would love to shoot a bunch of whitetails with this thing or coyotes, and because it's like really designed to optimize for those types of things. So
Absolutely, yeah. You could pound a screw into this table with a hammer if you really wanted to, but I mean, there are tools that are better for that application. So I mean, but teach their own. I mean, I'm not going to shame people for it, but I would also recommend like looking at a 300 Weatherby if you're going to go kill elk. So
Yeah. I think that there's a right. That's why there's so many different options, right? That it's like the conundrum whether you're into motorcycles, airplanes, or screw guns. The right tool for the job is important. Like, you might need a drill that just is a drill, but maybe you're trying to drill into a ceramic material or a concrete material, and then you need a hammer drill. So, maybe you're shooting deer only, 240, 257, great options. You're going to go bigger, you might just get a bigger caliber or cartridge or both.
yeah, we're making them every day. I mean, it seems like a great idea to me.
I'm kind of a cartridge minimalist, right? I don't have like tons of cartridges, but honestly, talking to Seth and talking about like, teaching his kids how to shoot, that it does really make a lot of sense to start a kid off on like a 240 if distance is going to be a little shorter.
The extra forgiveness
Yeah.
from a 240 Weatherby is huge.
Yeah. Like, especially like if you're talking wind drift or things like that, up close, it just doesn't matter, which is kind of nice. I was looking at that with some of our stats, ballistics. It's, it gets there quick. So
Yeah, that flight time's low.
I got one for you then, Jared. We'll close with this. It's a question, and you can only pick one cartridge for everything.
Oh, no.
It doesn't matter what it is. You get one cartridge. The gun can change, but the cartridge has to stay the same
I already know what he's gonna say.
till the end of time.
till the end of time.
Okay.
I had a writer. Well, I'm going to buy him a little time. I had a writer ask me this recently, and I wrote a little thing back to him about what I would pick. So I've cheated. I already gave this some thought, but
If you're going to have to like fill in like every gap, like even like self-defense or whatever else, then it'd be like probably like a 308. But if you're talking about like just a hunting cartridge, like across the board hunting, then it's hard to go away from like my 300 Weatherby, because it'd be like, yes, it's like using like a framing hammer for like hammering in a picture frame nail, but it will do the job for whatever you're doing.
yeah, it's a good answer. Well, there's a lot of people, I guess, answered 308. I actually answered 6.5 Weatherby RPM. Because that's like you could go 26-inch barrel, get your velocity up to close to probably 35. Or you do like a 16, 18-inch barrel, run it in a magazine-fed type gun. I've been curious to build like an AR-10 style 6.5 RPM. It'd be kind of fun.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Then you could have that for like a more defense situation, short barrel, lose a ton of velocity, but that's what you would want. Like if you're in your house, I don't want to shoot a 6.5 RPM and hit through multiple houses. So
Bolts come apart in walls. They're going fast.
that's true.
So.
Yeah. But there's not a lot of frangible bullet options in that diameter.
Probably not.
I just thought it was a funny thing to think about. Tyler, Seth, any thoughts?
I'm just gonna go 300 Weatherby because I'm a hunter. So
Yeah.
if things hit the fan,
Yeah, you use the
I'll
hammer.
I'll use a hammer. 195. Let's go.
I'll see your 300 and I'll raise you 338, 378.
I knew that one was coming.
That's what
too.
he's going to pick every time.
These two are so
love
predictable
it.
over here.
There's nothing more fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening.